Good evening, everybody, and welcome to TEDxFrome. My name is Dawn Denton, and this is our weekly short-form digital program, Frome for Thought. This is leading up to our in-person event that will be taking place the first couple of months. We'll see how things go. Our main event, which will be at the beginning of 2021. So watch this space for more information, because we're very excited about that, and we'll be sending out that information. So be alert, because we'd love you all to be involved. This evening, I have the greatest pleasure to chat to the lovely Rachel Woods about her fantastic idea worth spreading, and it's about nature. And I know that during lockdown, nature has slightly shifted for some people. I think people have become a little bit more aware of nature. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. It's so lovely to have you with us, because you're not too far from Frome. You're quite local.
No, I'm not. I'm just down in Wincanton, so not very far at all.
Just down the road. Just down the road. So tell us about. So your idea is about nature, not just a nice thing. It's just, yeah, it's nice, but it's a must-have in life. Why, and how does nature enhance our lives?
Yeah, and it's funny. If you'd said some of this stuff that I talk about now, 15, 20, certainly if you'd said this in the 80s, I would have been branded a hippie, put money on it. Druids and pagans for years and years and years and years. I'm not a pagan, by the way, but I could be. They've been saying for decades and centuries that nature is so pivotal to life. It is absolutely essential for life on this earth. And I think at some level we've sort of always known that, but kind of going, yeah, it's all a bit over there. I think since lockdown, many more people have been getting out into nature, because it was one of the things we were allowed to do was go for a walk and exercise outside. So I think, yes, appreciation has grown, but I still don't think the science is known. And what's been happening in the last sort of 3 decades is that science has been studying this and going, oh, hang on, they were right. This is really important. This is critical for, as we know, for food production, clean air and water and all the rest of it. The trees are kind of our lungs for the earth, if you like. But more kind of pivotal than that is the impact that nature has on us and our wiring and our well-being in general. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, is to spread that awareness, that having that appreciation for natural things around you. And it's not getting all the gear and yomping up a hill looking for some unknown bird that's only seen once a century, and then getting a glimpse if you're lucky. It's not that. It's about stuff that's accessible. It's on the doorstep. It's pigeons and clouds and grass and earthworms and just little things that you can access, whether you're in an urban environment or not.
And how does that enhance our being? What does that actually physically do for us?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. So this is where science is catching up. And I love the fact that science is taking this seriously now. So one of the first things I was made aware of was some Japanese scientists taking some people into a forest. So you may have heard of Shinrin-yoku, which is Japanese forest bathing or basking, which is where you spend time in the forest just breathing the air and connecting with the air and trees around you. And they've been doing that with school children for again, not millennia, actually. It's a relatively modern thing. Shinrin-yoku is probably 80 odd years. But they've started studying it. And when they took some health metrics, actual physical health metrics, they found that the brain waves that are associated with creativity increased. They found that blood pressure reduced both at the diastolic and the systolic levels. So both blood pressure measures came down. And then they had some more qualitative, subjective kind of questions they had for the participants themselves. And it was almost unanimously reported that everyone felt less fatigue and tension, and trauma is the wrong word, but worry and concern, and reported more feelings of general well-being and feeling calm and at peace. And if you think about it, and most people have been for a walk at once in their lives and gone for a walk through the woods, or where we are, it's very easy to walk around a park or get out to the sort of local forests. Unless you've actually hurt yourself. Okay, I've done that. I've never known myself or anyone I know to come back from a walk feeling worse than when they went out. Ever. And we don't really think about it.
Even if it's been pouring with rain.
even if it's been pouring with rain. Because do you know what? You get back and you're so grateful for the dry and the heat and the hot shower. And that makes you feel there's nothing better than getting kind of cold and chilled on a good walk. And you come back and you think, well, that was a bit, of an endurance thing. But you get back and you feel great for having done it. And then you get to enjoy all these lovely warming things that you get to do, like having a bath or hot chocolate, or just getting warm and dry. The simple pleasure of just getting warm and dry when you're uncomfortable. So there's that. It's a bit of yin and yang, I suppose, but it's what's the word? Feral's the wrong word. It's just so naturally us. And that's the thing. If you think about where we've come from, we were hunter-gatherers many, many thousands of years ago before we decided that agriculture was a good idea. So we roamed around looking for resources, long and short, food, water, shelter. So we've still got that wiring. Our brains have evolved, yes, of course they have, but we've still got the wiring that is gravitating towards food, water, shelter. So we holiday, if you think about it, countryside, beach, coast, centre of Milton Keynes. No, you can get food, water and shelter in the centre of Milton Keynes, but we don't gravitate towards that because our wiring hasn't caught up with urban environments being that safe space.
Wow.
So our wiring's still going, tinkling brooks and singing birds, that's a wonderful noise because that means there's food nearby and there's water nearby.
Yeah.
Somewhere in ancient brain we have is going, oh, we like that, we'll go there. And it soothes things because it's reassuring. At a really, 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 really micro level, it's reassuring. And at the academic level, at the rational level, we're going, oh, this is pretty. This is pleasant, isn't this? Isn't this nice?
So it's the awareness really of being somewhere natural, outside. So you advocate for taking the traditional indoor activities and putting them outside. How do they change then when you do that?
This all started actually when I was working in Trowbridge, and we would do some sort of walking meetings. We'd walk around the block. Now Trowbridge is quite nice. It's for a trading estate. The White Horse Business Park's actually quite leafy and quite pleasant. So if the weather was kind and we weren't wearing shoes that hurt our feet, because office workers often do, we'd go for it was about a 1 mile lap, if you like. It took about sort of half an hour, and we noticed that walking shoulder to shoulder and side by side with somebody and the action of moving together just sort of took down some barriers. It kind of made inhibitions sort of drop away a little bit to a point where it was easier to share and talk. Walking like that was sitting in a box with a lid, eyeball to eyeball. And it was less potentially confrontational. If somebody was worried about something, it was much easier for them to go for a walk. And again, have that almost comradeship. I think when you're shoulder to shoulder with somebody, you feel that you're collaborating in some way, because you're moving at the same pace in the same direction. And it just made, and even people that I wouldn't have thought would have shared things with me in my role, and because they were much more senior to me, would suddenly share things that I was not expecting them to share. And that was like, wow, okay, I didn't know that about you. And it just humanized them so much. So that combined with being at Henley and doing my MSc, which is coaching and behavioural change, but of course the grounds at Henley are stunning, right by the Thames, lots of trees, lots of open space. I fell in love with that place. And we did a lot of the activities and practice outside. And thought, well, coaching works out here. This is good because the same phenomena were happening in that environment with the coaching tools as was happening with just the kind of walking meetings. So in my last year there, I did all of my one-to-ones with my team, all of their end of years reviews and things on a walk around the block.
Wow. But so my worry is that if I had to go outside to do something like, get coaching, or maybe go and write outside or do something creative or things that I would have done indoors, wouldn't I be more distracted outside?
You'd think, and it's funny because I think to myself, I'm a little bit, a bit like that dog in the Disney film Up. It's like squirrel. So I will see things and just get really excited when I see a squirrel or a bird or an interesting mushroom. But actually, there's a chap called Kaplan. Him and his wife actually did some studies, quite a lot of studies, a piece around stress recovery in nature, which again, tick, very good for that. But they also did a piece around attention restoration because of this argument of, but what if you get distracted by, a pretty bird or a tree or something falls over, or the wind gets up, and all of these noises that you get in nature, or there's a wasp around your head. And they did a study when they looked at the interruptive patterns on the human brain of various noises and things that happened, and how much it affected your train of thought. And what they concluded was actually noises that you hear in an office where you are normally working, and they are familiar to you, and they usually mean something, or you're waiting for something, or there's possibly a call, there's voices in the corridor because the wall's never that thick, there are partitions between meeting rooms, and oh, I wonder what they're talking about, oh god, that's kicked off again. All that stuff that goes off in your head takes the thought process you had, this train of thought that was very nicely on its tracks, and you were in flow and you were getting some progress, jumps off the rails, and your cognition goes somewhere else, or there's much more potential for it to go somewhere else. So you've derailed your train of thought, and then it's really difficult to pick that train up and get it back on that track. What they found was natural noises, so bird song, rivers, even animals that squawk and cows that moo, and that things that just make you stop and turn and go, oh, and then carry on. They don't derail that train. I think they make it sort of pause in a station and look around, and then it carries on in the same. So it's easier to go back to where you were thinking, and to go back to that flow of thought. You don't then go off into a whole new cognitive process. So very clever chap. I mean, amazing. I don't know how he measured it. I don't know. I'm sure I could read a very long peer-reviewed journal about it if I felt like it. I'm going to take it as that works, because I find that my train of thought doesn't get derailed when I'm outside. Whereas actually when sitting in here like this, if I heard the doorbell go, I'd be going, oh, that's this time of night, that's unusual. And I would be panicking and wondering that something was going wrong. If our phone went, nobody rings us at this time of night, it's my mum, something's wrong, somebody's ill.
Yeah.
So I've gone somewhere else entirely, which is what kind of happens when we coach, probably in an environment where possibly some of the issues you're coaching on have happened.
Oh, that's true.
That echo is always there, and it's sometimes it can be helpful, but I think in the main it makes a massive difference if you can take a completely cold view and a completely fresh look in a completely different space. And it's that whole package of the physicality and the principle of being somewhere else entirely with someone else, talking about something that you're walking side by side with someone who's a bit of a weird friend. They don't judge you, they have no agenda, they don't get fussy if you don't pay any attention to them, because it's all about you. That's what sort of weird friend a coach is, and that's what I love about it as a piece of work. And being outside, I think it just enhances. It's not the thing; it's a tool. It makes it better, like a lot of coaching tools do.
Yeah. So tell me about Bob.
Bob, yes. So while I was at Henley, and trying to do a bit of coaching here and there within the organisation, I went to the office in Chiswick Park. Lovely new offices, very swish, very London, big windows, so lots of open air views, obviously of the city, but okay. Clouds and things, and aeroplanes flying over. So it was a nice open office, but they had this meeting room, which I don't joke, looked like a soundproof booth, like that you would sort of maybe record something like this in, because you didn't want the echo. You wanted to. It had that sort of eggshelly foam stuff on the walls.
Oh, okay.
Don't remember it having a vision panel in the door. I remember being quite horrified. It was once you shut the door, there was no natural light coming into it at all. And it was probably only about 2 by 2 meters.
Wow.
And it had 2 little chairs and a little table between them. I looked at it, and it was the only available meeting. They had much better meeting rooms, don't get me wrong. They had some that were lovely. Oh, well, they were a bit clinical. They're very white. Everything was very white and grey. Very sort of clinical, possibly interrogation kind of sweet stuff. Rocking that vibe. Not intentionally, I don't think. It was just, it looked funky and clean, But this room was just like, I was horrified. I'm like, please never, ever give me a coaching assignment in there. Never, ever have a conversation with me in here. I might dive in here to make a sensitive phone call. That's it. That's about as good as I would get for that room. So I thought, I wonder what would happen if I took something like this in. And Bob never actually made it to that room, sadly. But I started carrying him around. I mean, he was much smaller and neater and compact and not so.
So that's Bob.
This is Bob. Yeah, he's got
okay.
He's kind of a gangly teenager now. He was this neat. He's a calancho, and he was this neat little plant. He's a succulent, so he doesn't need much water. I can water him every 2 weeks, and he's perfectly happy. with lovely little red flowers, which he hasn't had for about 2 years now. So apparently I have to put him in the dark for 16 weeks to make him do that. And I can't bring myself to do it somehow.
Oh, Bob might not like that.
Yeah, no, I don't think he'd like it. And I don't mind him just being green. It's okay. The flowers just fall off and go everywhere. But they just carried him around. So I took him to Henley. He actually sat on the table at some of my lectures. I took him on the train to London and back a couple of times. And funnily enough, having him on the table in, an otherwise mostly empty carriage, one of those little table seats you get where, if somebody sits opposite you, you've got even less legroom. People were gravitating towards me and said, "Pop plant on this table." And I after a while, I plucked up the courage to say, excuse me, no, please don't. I'm not being rude here. I don't mind you sitting. It's quite nice to have a conversation. But why did you choose here? There are plenty of other actually empty tables with no one sitting at. And they went, "Well, they look quite cozy with your little plant."
Oh.
Oh, okay. So that sparked a whole. Now, I didn't study what the difference would be is if you made indoor spaces more biophilic. Biophilia is a term that was coined by a chap called Edward Wilson, who believed there is a genetic connection between human beings and the natural world, and that we have this gravitational bungee cord, if you like, to always want to be in green spaces. He's probably right. It just hasn't been proven yet. So that, well, so that's working then. That's that biophilic effect of having something green somewhere that's stark otherwise.
So Bob is the experiment and also the proof that a lot of this
poster boy.
He's the poster boy. I love it, Bob, the poster boy. Does he know he's that famous?
Pretty sure no.
So, I love actionable things that people can take away from your knowledge and experience. So when we think about nature, what can you suggest that we can do from tomorrow that would make a difference to our lives with nature?
Yeah, I mean, we're always spoiled for choice because there's so much you can do, but there are some really little things that can make a really big difference. So I don't know whether you saw it when it was happening. The wildlife trusts had a campaign back in, I think it was May or June. They did 30 days wild, and I joined in just to see if I can do this. And every single day you just notice something and take a picture or jot it down or do a drawing, or just notice it. Every single day, one thing of the natural world. And whether that was, a dandelion poking out of your patio, or, a butterfly or a bug or a bird or a cloud, it didn't matter what it was. It just made you notice nature once every day. And I noticed that when I did that, I was feeling afterwards much more focused to carry on with my work. It was like a little tiny, effectively switching me off and on again for a second or two. I was just going outside and just breathing fresh air and listening to the birds or watching a snail on the wall or something. And I quite like that. So, and actually when I got to the end of 30 days, I thought, well, I'm not going to stop, I'll keep going. And I'm quite observant of the natural world anyway, because I'm obsessive, as you know. But I thought, actually, that's really easy. Anyone can do that. Even if you're in kind of an inner city, there's still weeds poking out of pavements. There are still bugs in walls. And so I started doing things like just staring at like a little patch of my hedge, just to see what tiny things were in there. Because when you look at a hedge, and go, oh, it's a hedge. How many times do we do that? Yeah, it's a hedge, all right, it's green. And so if you look a bit closer, you go, oh, yeah, well, the leaves are a nice shape. And you look a bit closer again, oh, there's a spider in there. And a little bit closer, there's, and it's just like, well, that's so simple. And it's 10 minutes of just staring at something until your eyes look at things that are smaller than the things that you see to start with. Because we're very good at making a sweeping picture.
Yeah.
Filling in the gaps and going, yes, it's a woodland. But we don't stop and notice and notice and notice and notice. And it's amazing what we can do. And also what that does up here is reset if you are having a bad day, or, your amygdala and all the bits and bobs that create the kind of the hormones that aren't overly helpful, except unless you have to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. The ones that create anxiety and panic attacks and even mild stresses, they have got something to do. You're giving them something to do, and they can't. The nice thing about your brain is it's actually quite stupid. It can't do two things at once. I mean, we can drive and sing at the same time and all that kind of. We can do motor functions and
yeah.
But you couldn't, for example, I don't know, sing happy birthday while writing the alphabet down.
Oh, I'm going to try that.
Oh, try it. Yes, you do it. Do it. Yeah, challenge you. If you can, I shall be really impressed. It's very rare for anyone to be able to do that. But ultimately, that's because you can't run two cognitive processes. Imagine trying to read a book and watching telly. What do you, when you're reading the book,
Oh, I
you
know.
don't even
I keep
hear the
pausing
TV,
the
do you?
TV, rewinding it. I think I could just sit there doing a magazine, but I can't. I can't do
No,
both.
your brain
Yeah,
cannot do both. And that's what's really
yeah.
brilliant, because what it does then is when you're on the throes of like, I'm really worried about something, you give it something else to do. And just for that little minute, you just buy yourself a little pause and a little bit of a reset. And sometimes that's enough. It's not always, depending on the
Yeah.
severity of something, but sometimes it's just enough. And we can all do it. We can all just watching clouds,
And actually,
looking at
it then
bugs.
and then becomes a habit, doesn't it? It then becomes a part of who you are, and then it just becomes a natural process and your default. Then it,
Yes.
and that's kind of where you want to go to, don't you?
And then what's really lovely is I mean, charities like the wildlife trusts, if they're a bit like me, they just want people to be really aware of wildlife in their vicinities. So they do a lot of this stuff, and there's a lot of stuff of like kids on there, so things you can colour in and all that kind of stuff. It's a real plug for the wildlife trusts at the moment, by the way. But you know, I think there's something, I saw an email today. They're doing the big wild walk for October. I think it's a bit of a fundraising thing, but actually it's also just getting people outside, because the more you go out and the more that you appreciate it. I do have an ulterior motive for all of my work with, you know, companies and anyone else that I take outdoors. If they appreciate it more and it's under threat, they are more likely to protect it than if they don't appreciate it. It's as simple as that. So my
Very good
manipulative
point.
side of me is that ulterior motive is come and see how great this is, see how healthy it is for you, see the benefits you get from it. And then if it's under threat, we'll step up and help protect it. You may be more inclined to do that, which is what I would
Oh,
hope.
I totally agree. Oh, that's so true. Absolutely. Oh, well, Rachel, it has been absolutely lovely to chat, and I am definitely going to write the alphabet and sing happy birthday.
At the same time.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to think about nature as something that we have to make a part of our lives.
Yeah.
And once we do that, we will see the change in the way we behave, the way we respond to things, and the way we're able to receive the universe.
I think so. I think so. And it just
Well,
makes you more it makes you more chilled. I've got to say, it's the ultimate balm. It's I saw a quote from David Attenborough. Somebody shared it on LinkedIn or Facebook or something. And it was around, it is both our ally and our inspiration. And we should see it that way, because if we see it that way, then we'll start working with it and we'll protect it and we'll make the most of it. Because we have to survive on this planet, we're going to have to do that. So we might as well enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you everyone for joining us this evening. It's really lovely to have your company, and we will be back next week. So thanks very much. Bye-bye.